Imagine a world where the food on your plate holds the power to heal or harm. Every meal you eat, every snack you reach for, is either creating an environment where your body thrives or one where cancer can take hold. But what if I told you that some of the foods we consume every day could be feeding cancer cells quietly, without us even knowing? Today, we're diving deep into the hidden connection between the foods we eat and how they can fuel cancer growth, using science, research, and expert insights. Stay with me, because what you're about to learn might change the way you look at your next meal. Cancer loves acidity. It's a statement that seems simple, but it's rooted in decades of research and backed by renowned health experts like Barbara O'Neill, who've studied the effects of diet on cancer cells. But why? Why does cancer thrive in an acidic environment? And more importantly, how does the food we eat contribute to this? The pH balance in our bodies plays a critical role in our overall health. In a healthy person, blood pH sits around 7.35 to 7.4, slightly alkaline. But the pH inside our cells can vary drastically. Cancer cells, for instance, prefer a much lower pH, around 5.5, which is highly acidic. In such an environment, cancer cells can grow, thrive, and multiply. Acidity in the body doesn't just come from external factors. It's deeply tied to the foods we consume. And one of cancer's best friends in this acidic environment? Sugar. When sugar is metabolized in the body, it produces acidic byproducts like lactic acid, which lowers the body's pH even further. What's more, sugar directly feeds cancer cells, allowing them to grow stronger. And here's the kicker. Sugar is everywhere, often hidden in processed foods, soft drinks, and snacks that we might not even think twice about consuming. Barbara O'Neill stresses that cancer loves sugar. It's not just about avoiding sweets. This is a metabolic reality that many of us are unaware of. Cutting sugar isn't just about managing weight or diabetes. It's about starving cancer cells, preventing them from getting the fuel they need to flourish. But sugar isn't the only culprit. In fact, there's another category of food that's even more common and just as dangerous: red meat and processed meats. These foods are incredibly high in phosphorus and sulfur, two minerals that create an acidic environment when consumed in large amounts. And when you add these acid-forming elements to an already high-acid diet, you're feeding not only your body, but potentially cancer as well. Barbara O'Neill cites Dr. Colin Campbell's research, which found that altering the intake of meat could effectively turn cancer cells on and off. Imagine that for a moment. Being able to control the growth of cancer cells by simply adjusting the amount of meat in your diet. It sounds like science fiction, but it's rooted in real science. Processed meats, such as bacon, sausages, and cold cuts, come with their own unique dangers. These meats contain not only harmful preservatives like nitrates, but also chemicals formed during processing that can directly damage our cells. Studies have shown a clear link between high consumption of these meats and an increased risk of cancers, particularly colon cancer. But it's not just about avoiding red meat or processed foods entirely. The message here isn't to demonize meat, but to understand its place in your overall diet. Balance is key. And then, we come to something that many people consume without a second thought: bread, pasta, pizza, cookies, essentially anything made from modern wheat. But this isn't the wheat of the past. What's on our plates today is a product of hybridization, a process that has dramatically changed its impact on our health. Modern wheat, the kind used in nearly all processed foods, has been genetically altered over the years to increase yield. While this might have helped address global food shortages, it came at a cost to our health. Barbara O'Neill points out that today's wheat has a complex gluten structure that many human bodies find difficult to digest. This hybridized wheat is far more acid-forming than its ancient counterpart, einkorn, which had a simpler, more digestible gluten structure. In today's world, gluten intolerance is rising, and many experts believe this hybridization is to blame. The complex proteins in modern wheat not only make it harder for our bodies to digest, but also add to the overall acid load, which, as we know, cancer thrives on. What's more, wheat is found in nearly every processed food, making it a challenge to avoid. So what's the solution? It might not be about eliminating wheat altogether, but being conscious of where it comes from and how much we're consuming. We've talked about the big players like sugar, meat, and wheat, but there are other foods and substances that can quietly contribute to the acidity in our bodies. Things we consume daily, like caffeine, dairy, and alcohol. Let's start with caffeine. Whether it's a cup of coffee to kickstart your day or an energy drink to get through the afternoon, caffeine is everywhere. But what many don't realize is that caffeine, especially when combined with sugar, significantly raises the body's acid levels. Barbara O'Neill explains that regular consumption of caffeine forces the body to use its alkaline mineral reserves, like calcium and magnesium, to buffer this acidity. This depletion can weaken the body's defenses against chronic diseases like cancer. Then there's dairy, particularly aged cheeses, which are highly acid-forming. Blue cheese, for instance, contains mold, and most dairy products, being high in protein and phosphorus, contribute to acidity. The more processed or aged the cheese, the more acid-forming it is. While fresh cheeses like cottage or ricotta may be less acidic, they can still add to the overall acid load. And finally, alcohol. While technically not a food, alcohol is a known contributor to an acidic environment in the body. It breaks down into acetaldehyde, a toxic compound that damages brain cells and creates more acidity. Both alcohol and tobacco share this harmful trait. Neither are foods, but both create the perfect environment for cancer cells to thrive. What's fascinating is how dairy, caffeine, and alcohol often come bundled with other acidic or acid-forming companions. Take coffee, for instance. How many times do people pair it with sugar, a pastry, or even dairy creamer? This combination is a perfect recipe for an acidic overload, putting immense pressure on the body's buffering systems. Even that seemingly innocent cup of coffee could be contributing to a long-term shift in your body's pH balance, particularly if it's consumed regularly with sugary or dairy-rich accompaniments. When it comes to alcohol, the effects aren't just limited to acidity. Alcohol also disrupts the liver's ability to detoxify the body effectively. Barbara O'Neill explains that alcohol depletes the liver's stores of essential nutrients, which are necessary for neutralizing toxins and acids. The combination of nutrient depletion and increased acid load makes alcohol a particularly potent contributor to an environment where cancer cells can grow. And let's not forget the social aspect. Alcohol is often consumed with other acid-forming foods like processed meats or salty snacks, further compounding the problem. Now, does this mean you need to eliminate all acidic foods from your diet? Not necessarily. Barbara O'Neill suggests a balance, consuming about 20% acidic foods and 80% alkaline-forming foods. This ratio allows the body to maintain its pH balance without overwhelming it with acid. Think of it as a spectrum. On one end, you have highly acid-forming foods like sugar, red meat, processed meats, and caffeine. On the other, you have alkaline-forming foods like leafy greens, legumes, and certain nuts. Striking a balance between these can make a huge difference in how your body functions and fights disease. It's also important to recognize that our bodies are equipped with systems designed to manage these pH shifts. Our kidneys, lungs, and digestive systems work together to maintain balance. But what Barbara stresses is that when we constantly overload the body with acid-forming foods, we're asking these systems to work over time, potentially leading to breakdowns or inefficiencies. This could manifest as chronic fatigue, inflammation, or even more serious health issues like cancer. The balance is about giving your body the support it needs, not constantly pushing it to its limits. The key takeaway here is moderation and mindfulness. It's not about living a life of dietary restriction, but rather about being aware of how the foods we consume impact our health on a deeper level. By choosing more alkaline-forming foods like fresh vegetables and whole grains, we empower our body's natural defense systems and make it much harder for cancer and other diseases to thrive. If you found this video helpful, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more insights into how the food we eat shapes our health.